Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the podcast that I'm doing against all perceived logic. Because logic at the minute would say you do a podcast with another person and the two of you have cracked together, and then you have more chance of those clips going viral and becoming massively famous. And that is how people do it. But every time I've tried to do that, it just never works out because the admin is so annoying. So I'm like, well, if this is going to happen, I'm just going to do it myself. I'm going to do it against all logic, as I said. I don't know what it's going to be called, something like that. I'm going to talk about writing and gigging and what's that like and what's going on. So I'm just back from gigging abroad. That's an interesting one. I'm back from Oslo for the Oslo English Speaking Comedy Festival, which is run every year by a really nice person called Pernilla Holland, who I've known for a few years. We got to know each other at the Fringe last year when Pernilla was on after me and was very kind when I overran a couple of times, which is incredibly unprofessional of me. Incredibly unprofessional of me. But to in my defense, I was following a sketch group and they were complete arseholes, both uh, to the people around them and themselves. They were on not straight before me. Jambi McGrath was on before me. He was a very lovely person as well. But they kept overrunning so much they would fuck Jambi's show. Um, and this is the problem with sketch groups. Well, there's a lot of problem I have with sketch groups. Firstly, is that 95% of them are terrible. Like the worst theater you've ever seen is nowhere close to as bad as a bad sketch group, because what you have is people earnestly dancing around with the light in their eyes and, hey, we're having a good time, can you show me to the cheese shop? And I'm like, why the fuck do you always talk about cheese shops? That is like a hacky thing to talk about with sketch groups, but it is true. Anyway, they were pricks and caused it to overrun. So a couple of times I overran. Pernilla was very sound about it. And then invited me to come to Oslo just past for the festival. I'd never gigged there before, and the way I work generally is I'll say yes to, if I've never been to a city before, I will say yes to a gig there, regardless of how good or bad it pays, or the kind of how you're being treated, whatever about that. I'm just like, yeah, I'll say yeah, that'll be a bit of crack. I'd never been to Norway before and wondered. Now, gigging abroad, I generally have not enjoyed. I find that my comedy, um, it just, I just sort of need people to be able to follow on and themes, and it's not really like joke, 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 and I don't tend to go into the crowd or anything. And what you find is like gigs abroad, there a lot of them are obviously expats from various countries, so you'll get like a United Nations of different languages, and they have, in my experience, like you'll find people get a joke like differently or after, so a laugh won't be like one big ha 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 ha. It'll come one after the other, and as people translate to their mate who might not have got it, you get other stuff. So what you can do to do really well there is you can go into stuff about the different countries. So if you have a load of Italians there, you can talk about how overrated pasta is or whatever, and they'll be raging and everyone will think it was hilarious. Or if you have a load of Germans there, you can make fun of the fact that they've got no sense of humor, which I actually disagree. I find them very dry, but I quite like the German sense of humor. I just wish it got to their face, because they do look, those like Teutonic, like Easter Island heads. That's difficult not to crack. But that's how you do those gigs, or you can do them anyway. Like recently, in the last few months, I went to Geneva, and it was me and Mike Rice, and Mike's a beast, a beast, can do any room, and has lived in loads of different countries and understands how to play those rooms probably a bit better than I did. And like I did all right, not I was just all right, but felt like this is what I just you don't feel like you can connect. And Mike fucking leveled the room, and put a bit of a boot up my hole while he did that. So anyway, so I said yeah to Oslo, and you know what's funny is as well, like any gigs, the admin in a gig is quite interesting. So the way it works is, you know, either I'll get an offer or the agent will get an offer, and they're like, here it is, it's this much money on these dates. Do you want to do it? Yes or no? That's grand. And that's it. Like that. Then on the maybe 2-3 days before the gig comes, you'll get an email with like a running sheet, and this is who's on, this is when you're on, a phone number for the venue for the person running it. See you there. Brilliant. Happy days. Panilla was so organized. It was hilarious. She sent through a 5-page document, right, about firstly about the actual area, so where you're staying, how to get there, which was always it's always very welcomed when you're traveling. But then she also went into like, this is the kind of audiences that we generally get. This is the kind of stuff they like. Do not reference these local, like real, like local English references. So obviously somebody had gone out there and shit the bed doing jokes about like Weatherspoons and Greg's. I love that. Like, come on. It's, you see it here with Americans as well. They come over and have like, I seen a guy do, it was brilliant. This guy at a backyard, he turned up and he was wearing a Letterman jacket like you see in Smallville, no, with the thing on it, but it was for a TV show that he had done in LA, right? He turns up with his missus. He's late, first of all, to the gig. Sorry, guys, I just got in, right? And he's an Asian American guy. He gets in a bit late. So what he doesn't see is that in the first section, Nigel Ong, now world famous as Uncle Roger, then just doing comedy as himself, Nigel Ong had been on, who's also Asian American, and but has lived here a while, so like crushed the gig. And then this guy who's going on the second section, he goes up and he starts making jokes about being, firstly being the only Asian guy on the bill. So everyone in the room was like, what? What just happened there? Wait, but what about that other guy who's almost exactly the same? And he then goes, after that doesn't get anything, he then goes into this like hyper local stuff about the neighborhood in Los Angeles he lives in, like literally down to like, you know, this coffee shop, blah blah blah. And I'm at the back next to his missus, and his missus was filming it. And she's beside me filming with her phone. And as he's going, he has this bit about sort of what he looks like or whatever. And he says the bit, there's dead silence in the room as people are like, we now don't give a fuck about you. And so he waits, there's dead silence. And because he's just got a script, he goes, come on, guys, don't laugh at that. Oh, God. And I turned around, his missus just started dropping the phone down. She just turned off the recording and just slowly dropped the phone down. Oh, God, that's brilliant. Oh, and so he didn't do the research. He didn't have someone like Panilla who was like, here, maybe don't talk about your specific coffee shop, you absolute maniac. And so I had a good feeling to the gig, and I like Panilla, and she knows my wife, which is always nice when there's another connection there, and so that's good. I am very, like, I tend to be quite antisocial in general, and especially when I go away, I like exploring and stuff, but it was nice to know, like, oh, well, if I get stuck or whatever, I don't feel weird about meshing Panilla. So get there, you know, get in early, fly in early to Oslo, and she had booked a hotel, which was really great as well. The problem was like the hotel check-in was at 3 p.m., which is like, I know that's what they do now, but 3 is so late for like when you're paying for a room, and the checkout was at like 10. So you're like, what? Like that is a mugging session. And this one, normally if you go early, like there might be a chance you get a room. This one didn't have a person there, so it was just like it was like self-service apartments. It was really nice, but like I was like, fuck me. So I ended up going to a coffee shop, trying to do a bit of writing, and they got my like first shock. I've heard Norway is expensive. We've heard that Scandinavian countries, you're like, yeah, they're, I think, quite rich, so things are expensive. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. I got a coffee and a muffin, and it cost me the equivalent of like 11 quid. I was like, oh my god, oh god, I'm gonna lose weight in this trip. Anyway, but to their credit, it was so good. It was so good. The coffee was brilliant. So that was grand. Then when eventually got checked in, had a nap because I'm an old man now. I went to the venue. The venue was a place called Salt Arts and Venues or something. It was called, on the water, there. And like Oslo's so beautiful. And they were in the middle of a heat wave. It was the hottest that they've had it in 50 years. It was great. It was like 31 degrees, which is crazy hot for me. But those fucking maniacs are doing saunas. Like, who's doing a sauna in 30 degrees? I couldn't understand. And there's, like, in the venue is attached to, like, loads of different saunas. So you could just see people running around, sunburnt, like nothing you've ever seen. Sunburnt, like the colour of this Lucozade. I thought Irish people were bad for not wearing sunblock. These guys were crazy. No sunblock, and then in the sauna, they're just roasted. Their wee red bums roasted from the seats. It looked like someone had like hit them with wood, like a cartoon, like across the back and the arse. And it's the first gig Thursday night. Was an interesting one because the room was like made up of primarily Norwegians, I would say, which Pernilla had said that was unusual. And then, so 40% Norwegians, 60 whatever else. It was good. We was on with a couple other very sound comedians. Pernilla was hosting. She's very good at that. And there was a lady called Thea who opened and was very good. I think is new in English comedy. So has been doing comedy in Norwegian for a while, but started doing it in English recently. And I am always baffled by the people who can do it in a second language. That blows my mind. Like how quick your thinking has to be, or how well written your jokes have to be. It feels crazy to me. And I know Eddie Izzard, or Susie Izzard now, like she does it in French, German, and I think now Arabic. And I think I've heard her say that because she has to translate it into a language that she's not particularly familiar with, then the jokes get better because there's no wasted words. And they just you want to get rid of the fat off a joke, basically, is the, again, perceived logic. And then when she can translate that back into English, the joke should be shorter. I mean, I don't know if that's true. It feels very difficult. It feels very hard. But they did all right opening. And then Steph Dupre, who's a American comedian based in Berlin, was on. She's an opera singer and comedian as well. She's a phenomenal singer, really nice person too. And then I went at the end, and you're always kind of finding your feet on the first night, I would say. Just to be like, how are these bits going to go over? How am I going to structure my set? And it went fine. It was good. And afterwards, we went out, had a drink outside together, which was nice, and then home fairly early. Then the next morning I woke up and I was like, I'm like a tourist in these places. I'm like, what am I going to do? I'll go. Everyone said go see on the fjord tour, so I got the big boat round all the fjords, and that was pretty nice. 10 a.m. It's nice to have something to wake up to, or I'll just stay in bed all day. So did that round, seen all their museums from the water. It was such a beautiful day as well on their eco-friendly catamaran, which sounds like it's small, but it was like huge thing. And that was like a couple of hours, and then went to the Munch Museum. The Scream guy, and I never really liked this stuff. I get that painting, I think we all kind of get the Scream. You look at it, there's a guy having a complete breakdown on a bridge, and his mates are walking along, so they don't know what's happening, and they're like, I have felt that. that existential dread. I felt that. Normally, it is preceded by a big night out. But like that, you look at it and you get it, But I'd seen some of his other stuff and it didn't talk to me. But the museum was there. I was like, yeah, let's go. Why not? I've got time. Turned out it's one of the best things that I've ever done. And it's like the museum is spectacular. It looks like a big phone book on its side, so it's kind of weird looking, but I sort of like that. And like this guy was prolific. I assume these, like, mostly when you hear these painters, they all die quite young and they get found out after they're dead, all this stuff. And like I was completely ignorant of him outside of I'm falling apart. And like he lived to 80. So he lived from the mid 1800s to I think 1945 or something. So like the technological advancements that he'd seen, and he was mental from day one. He was terrified of death, which the Scream makes a lot more sense, I think, as well when you know that. But he like painted the same paintings over and over again, which I love, like at different points, different years. So the Scream, I think he did like 8 different versions of it, and 3 of them are there. You can see them. They rotate on a half hour. They open up like the lift doors. They open up to present one, and then after half an hour it closes, and they get another one to protect it. Also because they keep getting robbed. They've got robbed twice. I think that museum's got robbed. One guy just left a note, said, "Thanks for your shit security." Imagine robbing a painting and talking shit at the same time. Amazing. But he's dead now, so fucking who got the last laugh? Munch, that is. And but this museum, I was there for like 4 hours or something, walking around, and like his this guy was painting like at a clip and doing lithographs, huge canvases, wee tiny ones. He was doing selfies, which I loved, and the whole time you could just see a guy falling apart, which I liked again. And left that, then took a big walk and went to the bookshop. That was the night before. One of Steph's friends, a nice lady called Indigo, was at the show, and she runs the only English speaking bookshop in Oslo. And me, like a dickhead, whenever I was going over, I brought a book, and I realized 5 pages in that I had read it fairly recently, like an idiot. So I was like, oh, I'll go there. Went to Prismatic Pages, and it was lovely, really nice bookshop. And they were saying there was a massive like Irish literary community in Oslo, which I found fascinating. And so I picked up a copy of The Snowman, Joe Nesbo's book, and it was quite funny. His lady was like, "Don't look at the movie that's got Fassbender in it. It is shit." Which another thing, I was like, I always thought that, when you hear people doing Scandi accents, and they talk like, I was like, that's like a gross stereotype, that's like Irish diddly dee, top of the morning to you. And then I got there, I was like, no, that's exactly accurate. That is how they talk. And they all look like Margot Robbie. You get so bored of tens after a while. I was like, fuck, another blue-eyed, blonde-haired elf. Great. All the lads are like Alexander Skarsgard. They all look like they work in real estate. They've all got that slick hair. I don't know what's in the water in Oslo, but they have like the thickest hair and it's all slicked back. So anyway, did that. Got a book for Jenna of like Norwegian sci-fi short stories and stuff. I was like, she like that. And then went back to the gig that night, and that was class. The Friday night was huge. It was sold out, massive room, all packed to the rafters, and it was hot. Like, it was a hot room. It was great. Penilla smashed it open, and the girls did really well. So it was like set up. When you have it like that, you're just set up to kill. And when you're like, I always find gigging anywhere really, if it's a new town especially, what people want is they want to know that you have been there, right? So that you're not just working off a script that is the same in every town, regardless of where you go. And so, like, the almost a cheat code for that is obviously some local stuff up top. So that's when you're walking around and kind of looking at what is interesting, what's not, and had a bit of fun about the Monk Museum, had a bit of fun about them all doing saunas, that, and then they're on side then, and really fun gig, and you're like, great, okay, now I'm okay, and I can maybe do a bit different, tomorrow night, what can I do differently? So your brain is just engaged maybe in a bit more of a way that it wouldn't be ordinarily if it was a gig that you do, say in London, where I'm going up and I'm just smashing the set to leave because you want to get the words right. Anyway, that was good, and then Penilla very kindly after that took me to meet some Norwegian comedians who they just done a big show in Norwegian, and it's so funny when you go anywhere I've been in the world, if you walk into a venue, you can spot the comedians table the second that you walk in. Comedians look exactly the same the world over. There is always one like sort of tough looking guy with a cauliflower ear because of Joe Rogan. There's always a little sort of nerdy Twinkie looking guy. There's a guy in round spectacles and he is the like Louis C.K. before he got cancelled guy. You have them, they're all there, and they were I was like, is that the comedians? She's like, yeah. So we go over, and it was really fun. One of the lads was the voice of Love Island there, and was a very nice guy. We had great chat about comedy and the differences or whatever. That was nice. And then we left out and went for like just a little walk around the city. Beautiful city to walk around, and the weather was so nice. Obviously, it was class. Although I was wearing jeans like an idiot because you're on stage. I'm like, I can't wear shorts on stage. I get some people can. I hate it. I hate looking at It's sexist of me because I don't mind when women wear dresses or whatever skirts. Lads in shorts, I'm just like, fucking wise up. You're not going to the beach. Like, I don't want to see your shins for whatever reason. That's my problem. But so I was sweating buckets, and went up to the palace and had a nice little stroll, and then I was back to the hotel. And the other good thing is Penilla doesn't drink, so which I love that as well. So there's no pressure to have like a big night, just like very chill evening, paying fucking 18 quid for a Diet Coke. Then the next morning was that was the last. Oh yeah, no. Then we went to the next morning. Penilla was like, "Well, let's all go swimming." So me, her, and Steph, Tay lived a bit outside and didn't fancy it. We went to one of the islands, went swimming, and you've never felt as terrible about your body as when you're swimming in Norway, and they are stunning. It was crazy. There was a guy. There was like a jetty out into the water almost. There was a guy standing there, and he was like an oil painting of a jacked guy. And he was wearing these shorts that were like tied at almost like, yeah, maybe they were elastic or something, but they were like tied at his thigh. So they were like ballooning a bit. And you could see his hog from 50 yards away. I was like, I had to point out the girl. I was like, here, this is a mad thing to say, but That guy looks like he has got an old style telephone. That's fucking. And what was hilarious was he knew that, so he didn't actually go swimming at all. He just stood there, like turning so that everyone could see his massive hog. It was like he was on a microwave plate, just spinning around for the world to see. Anyway, but it was very nice swimming there, and that was good. Um, and then back in another. Then the last gig was that night, which was very fun as well. And it was great. It was great. Except then after that, I don't know why, but in Norway, it felt to me they love scramblers and motorbikes and like quad bikes, and there was some sort of Fast and Furious style drift racing going on outside the hotel because all night I was out of my mind. Um, with these guys going up and down, but fucking, what are you gonna do? And then home the next day. Home the next day, which was good. And now I'm on the big. Now it's like I don't have loads. I have quite a big gig next week, but I'm writing loads at the minute. So I'm on this. There's like a thing called the BBC Comedy Collective, which is you send a script in and they pick like I think there's 8 writers out of I don't know how many thousand scripts or whatever that they pick as like they give you basically a year of opportunities on productions, and because I'm like I need to take every opportunity I get, I'm writing like crazy at the minute, scripts and pitches and everything, which is good, but it's taken a little bit of my eye off the ball and stand up, because you just can't do everything. But what are you gonna do? Outside of that, I don't have the Fringe, which is really good. That's really good. I did the Fringe last year, and I'm really excited for the people that I know going up there. They're going to have a ball. It's going to be class. And I think I'll do a little mini Fringe guide, I think, here next week. If you're going up. Or the shows, the way it works now is people go to the Fringe and then they tour the shows. So you'll always be able to see the shows of the good people. And I'll tell you who I'm excited about. There's quite a lot. Outside of that, I mean, look, that's 28 minutes. I feel like that's pretty good for a first effort. Let's see how this goes. Subscribe to the podcast. Subscribe to Substack if you're on there. I don't do loads, but when I do, it tends to be quite a big thing. And I'll put something out on that in the next week or so, I think. Yeah, but look, hope you enjoyed it. Follow me everywhere. Share it among friends. Just a guy chatting shite. Defying the odds. Goodbye.